Today's show is in two parts. I have news and thoughts on electric automaker Rivian packing their bags for California, and Fletcher Shape talks Lions and Pistons. This is your Daily Detroit, where we push Detroit's conversation forward. It's Wednesday, June 24th, 2020. I'm Jer Stays. I have a cold brew from Milwaukee Cafe. I'm fired up. There's stuff to talk about. Let's get into it. Electric automaker Rivian is packing most of their bags and heading to the West Coast. The upstart automaker has raised nearly $3 billion and has about 750 Michigan-based employees. They have partnerships with Ford to produce vehicles, but the future, according to a report in Autoline, will be in Irvine, California. They're moving, quote, most of its operations out of Michigan, unquote. Current projects in Michigan will continue. However, anything new is taking place in California. This would consolidate the 2,300 or so employees in mostly a single place that includes design, battery operations, and customer service. In an automotive news report, according to a former Rivian executive that is unnamed, Rivian CEO RJ Scringe, quote, believes California is a cool place to be and Detroit has an old technology image, and he thinks California represents tomorrow and Detroit is all about yesterday, unquote. Although a number of Michigan employees are reportedly hopping mad, it seems the deal is done. All right, here are my 2 cents. Well, let's be honest. You're going to get like $1 of hot take right about now. Listeners, I'm not going to sell you a bill of goods. I love so much about Detroit, and I love this region enough to give you some straight talk. Over the years, I have watched far too many friends and companies leave here for success than not. The mainstream press covers and pins everything on Dan Gilbert like he's some sort of messiah, that everything's better because he's here. But look, he is no mortgage impresario or Renaissance Jesus. He's just a businessman, doing what businessmen should do and what's good for their business. And I was hopeful about Rivian because in a functioning city and region, there'd be like 10 more Gilberts, not just with money, but vision to move the ball. I mean, hopefully in Detroit, we get some black billionaires, some billionaires of color. But it seems that here in Metro Detroit, much of our leadership class thinks things are just fine. The real talk is Rivian leaving should hurt and leaders and investors should pay attention. And I'm going to share some background that I haven't before, and this is from when we reported on Rivian last year, and I spent the day with them. I love riding bikes, and often in my corporate past, I would ride the bike to work. I would be one of those people who would store the bike in the hallway and all that stuff. I was one of the few, but I did. And one of the things that I noticed was that the CEO of Rivian likes bikes too. And I remember him saying that he biked to work to that facility out in Plymouth Township. And I don't know if you remember, it was a while ago, but it's kind of out there. It's not like it's in the middle of downtown Plymouth or something like that, which isn't very big. It's very cute and walkable. It's out by the big roads. And that stuck with me as I drove off from doing the Detroit Public TV segment I did at Rivian and the stuff for us. Biking in Plymouth Township, especially where he was at, look, it's unpleasant and it's perilous and there's cars everywhere. It's not like a walkable place. On the other hand, Irvine, California has nearly 400 miles of on-street and off-street bikeways. Look, I'm not silly enough to think this is the only factor. But I use this to illustrate that we can't dismiss how much quality of life matters when it comes to companies and company leaders choosing where they want to go. And frankly, in my personal life, I am tired of seeing friends of mine, talented friends, smart friends, caring friends, eventually get snapped up out of the region to never come back. I'm going to use one illustration, though I have a ton of examples. A dear friend of the show recently wanted to get a job to stay here. You hear his voice at the beginning doing the Patreon pitch every once in a while. After all, voiceover work was his side gig. He tried to stay here. He tried StockX. Ford wasn't an option. Tried Quicken and a bunch of others and was told for a variety of reasons that he wasn't a fit. And often the reason he wasn't a fit, it was cultural. That friend, he's now running a technical operation for Amazon with hundreds of employees. But he wasn't good enough for around here? Come on, that's just companies who don't know how to find talent, and I saw it over and over again. And even scarier, there's such a ceiling here that the jobs just don't exist for top flight people. And if you want to move out of automotive, where are you going to go? It's hard to make a lateral move to do something different other than cars. I see it in friends in education because we don't invest in schools. I've seen it in media. I've seen it in a bunch of industries. And I've almost become one of those folks a couple times. If not for this project where I know we've made some change, I can't say that I'd be staying here. Maybe instead of investing in tax incentives as we know them, we should just invest in making better communities with better amenities and better things for the people who live here. Because the reality is, we are always going to lose the billionaire giveaway game. Look at all the money we throw at the stadiums. Look at the money we throw chasing smokestacks. It just doesn't make sense. When we should just build a community that's great for the people who live here. And when we make it livable for all of us, the rest is gonna fall into place. The easy thing would be for me to just rail against RJ Scaringe, to be like he's an evil person and blah, 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 he took advantage. But I can't in good conscience do that because this is on us. And doing that for the clicks and the praise, acting like the yes men after yes men who don't push for a broader vision of a better region and the cities within it, it helps us get the mess we're in. I care too much about this place to be a slappy. All hope is not lost. I know that you out there, listeners, can be part of a new guard. I know there's energy for it, but we've got to get the chance and take the reins. Let's do better, Southeast Michigan. It's not 1970 anymore. It's 2020. Let's start acting like it and build a region that's better for the future. So yesterday we brought you the news of Martha Firestone Ford stepping down as the principal owner of the Detroit Lions. It is a change in ownership, if not within the same family. To talk about it a little bit more, and also we're going to get into the Pistons as well, Fletcher Shape, he's back. Welcome back, sir, to Daily Detroit.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate anytime I get to talk a little bit of sports knowledge that I have to other people.
Absolutely, and we do appreciate it. So basically the headline is that Martha Firestone Ford's daughter, Sheila Ford Hamp, she has been a person that has been involved in the Detroit business community. She's been involved in the Lions organization for the last few years. She's now got the reins of this big old NFL machine. What are some of your first thoughts, Fletch?
She's not a wide receiver or a running back, so she hasn't really dramatically changed the team's structure.
Right.
Yes, it gives the team a bit of a younger direction going forward, but it's still someone who had signing power before and had to sign off on some of the decisions that were made. So it's not really much of a change to me. If the Lions come out and they're a different team and the team starts spending differently and hiring differently, I'll say something. But as of right now, it's just been one day. I don't see any changes. They're still the Lions to me. Not my Lions, the Lions. So when the season comes back, we'll have to wait and see if there will be some changes there. But just given right now, it just looks like it's a lateral move to me.
Yeah, I'd like to see some kind of forward motion with this, because one of the things that's been frustrating of Ford ownership, not just with Martha Firestone, who's really only with it for a few years, but going all the way back to the 1960s with her husband, is that there just hasn't been a winning record. We just haven't won much of anything. And it seems like we're sometimes hesitant to pull the trigger on hires and sometimes have made some misfires around coaches and GMs and all of that kind of stuff.
Totally. And to see some of the chances they had, of course, sometimes they've had misfires and hiring people or waiting too long. The people they've waited too long to sign sometimes go off and do poorly. And it's look, we dodged a bullet. Sometimes they go off and do great things. And it's wow, that could have been our team. Yes, that team has a different, team makeup. But if they're following after their coach or following after their star player that we could have signed, yeah, we could have built the team around that as well. We're easily capable of building a team the same way that Team X is capable of building a team. So to see so many misfires or so many just waiting on stuff, it's very frustrating. After a while, you become jaded. That's kind of where I am personally, is until I see legit change or, Sheila Hamp goes out there and catches a 90-yard bomb or something, I think I'm just good to just wait on progress being made.
Well, from the field to the court, the Detroit Pistons made a move, and on Monday they introduced new GM Troy Weaver. Quick thoughts on this? This guy does have a bit of a background for sure.
It was 2 years in the making. I know that as much as Sam Presti of the Oklahoma City Thunder, as much as he's kind of been seen as an odd duck at times, he knows how to produce people. And when typically people come from Oklahoma City, they go off and do things. If he's holding on to somebody, it's because he knows that person means something. 2 years ago, Tom Gores tried to get Troy Weaver then. And Presti would not let him go. Was like, no, I'm not letting this guy. I need him to do X, Y, and Z. Troy Weaver is also responsible for the Thunder drafting Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Serge Ibaka. Russell Westbrook, to me, is especially like eye-opening, just because in college, Russell Westbrook was like this 6'1", 6 foot whatever defensive guard who was just energetic. He wasn't really like the Russell Westbrook we know of today. So the fact that he saw this one player in college and was like, yo, this is someone we can develop into like a star, that's super forward thinking. James Harden in college, he looked like a star, but he looked like kind of like, not the star we think of today. Serge Ibaka, I had no idea about Serge Ibaka at all. He came in and became like the studly defensive person that we see now, and he's even got a ring with Toronto. Those three players, along with the core that they had with Kevin Durant, that's a coup. No disrespect to anyone in the Pistons organization. I'm saying that they have not done anything like that. But for this guy to do this in quick succession like this means he clearly has an eye for talent. And while Oklahoma City definitely misses Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, they've done a pretty good job in like reloading to a degree. No, they're not world beaters. No, they're not going to win a championship anytime soon. But they've been able to maintain after losing star after star after star after star. So, like, yeah, I want a guy who helped build that team to help with our team. And Troy is saying all the right things. He made a joke about how he's happy to come to Michigan. He's happy to get 4 seasons finally. It means he understands, yes, it's cold. I'm happy with a guy who's like, this is not rebuilding. He's going back to noticing that Detroit has had a rich history in the sport, and he's trying to bring that back. He's trying to draft the person, not the player. It means he's actually looking at players and who they are as people, not just someone putting up numbers. And I'm cool with that. It means you want someone who's going to compete, someone who does things the right way, someone who knows how to play the game, but also understands, like, don't be like a little jerk off the court. I'm totally okay with that. That's good for me. That means that they're trying to get better on the court and get better as a team. It's not just getting a great player and saying, help us. It's let's build a team to make this become a long thing. We might not win the championship this year or next year, but let's compete. Let's go from step 1, step 2 to step 3. Like when Oklahoma City moved from Seattle, I made a bet with somebody after they got Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and then they got James Harden. I made a bet with someone. I'm like, look, give them 4 years. They'll be a really good team. I was wrong. They were good in 2 years. So if the guy who helped build that team, if we're going to get him to our team, I don't think he's going to make us into the Oklahoma City Thunder. Definitely not. That's a unique situation. But I do think if we give him enough right pieces, he can help steer this team back to being one of the better teams in the league. I'm okay with this. It's totally a good pick in my opinion, and I'm happy it happened now as opposed to 2 years ago.
One of the things about Gores' leadership, it seems like he wants to spend money and do certain things. Like I recently, before the pandemic, I toured their practice facility in Midtown, saw their new studios, all that kind of stuff. But Gores has not been able to kind of get a handle on the franchise itself to like basically help make it win yet. Do you think that he's been kind of waiting for this opportunity, or how do you feel about Gores in general with the Pistons?
It's hard to get a hand on a franchise when you're spending half the time out of state.
Yeah.
To be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my concern the whole way through is like, how are you going to be an absentee owner, especially with a team that needs so much?
Like even Bill Davidson in his old age, when he was running the Pistons, the Shock, and the Lightning, he would go to Tampa to like check on stuff. Like I understand that. That's totally fine. But like Tom Gores has like no other obligation from the Pistons aside from like family stuff, and yet he's spending so much time away from the Pistons. So I feel weird about that. That makes me feel uncomfortable in terms of like commitment. Yes, he spends money and he wants to do stuff, but it feels like it's more splashy stuff and not like substance. It feels like, oh, look at this new facility I'm making. That's great, but like your team still needs a point guard. It's like, well, look at this other thing I'm building. Like, that's great, but you still need a direct score of the basketball on your team, and you have money to do so. So, like, do it. He's like, well, look at this new training facility. Look at this new whatever. It's like, this is great. This is awesome for, like, the long run, but why don't we get someone who can help us? Because all the stuff means nothing if we're going to continually be bad. Like, trading them better when they're not great is going to make them go from not great to okay. If we could get someone to help us go from not great to like good, then the trading can help them become even better. But you got to like understand where your ceiling is and then try to push past that.
I was on the deck over there when they were unveiling this thing, and there are multiple loft developments like right across the street and within a couple of blocks. I looked over across the windows. I'm like, that's where Tom should move. Tom should get one of those lofts and have it there so that he spends more time and understands like what it takes, because, sports is a huge deal to this town, and there is nothing that drives, a fan base crazier than an absentee owner. I mean, if you think about, everything that's been happening with the Fords and the frustration with the Ford family, I don't think Gores wants to go down that road and get that reputation.
He won't get that much rope. The only reason why the Fords were able to do that is, one, because they're very, very rich. Not to say that Gores isn't. But two, they had a family, so when one was messing up, he just passed it to the other one.
Well, and they've now passed it to another one.
Right. So, while one Ford can mess up, another Ford can step up because, I'm passing it off to them. If Gores messes up and keeps messing up, they're going to get rid of him. He's not going to be able to pass it off to his wife or his child or something. That's just it. It's done. Like you said, I really feel like he should start, not that he's saying he's not taking it seriously. I'm sure because he's spending money, he's taking it seriously. I think he could take it more seriously. I think he should maybe spend more time in the state, making sure that his team is progressing the proper way, actually taking a better hand. Like, I know they have basketball operations, but I think he should take a better look into seeing what they can actually do with the team, whether it's not the staff per se. Dwayne Casey's doing a great job with what he has. I know he's a coach that typically builds people up, so I'm totally fine with him still being here. But, in terms of, your player personnel, I think you can do more in terms of getting scouting, in terms of getting the right draft picks, in terms of getting the right free agents. Heck, looking at Europe if you need to. Hiring more European scouts to make sure you can find someone to bring over as for a 1 year or 2 year from Spain or Croatia or Greece, etc. I feel like there's more he could be doing, and yes, I'm not in the boardroom, so me saying that is of course just a journalist looking from outside saying do better or whatever. But I feel like there's more, because while the Pistons are bad, they have the pieces to be better, and they just aren't. And it's very hard to the disconnect of why they are not getting better.
Yeah, and it is definitely frustrating for fans. Fletcher Sharpe, it's good to talk to you, man, and talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to being back soon.
And that's all for today. If you want to support what we're doing, join us as a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. It does help push Detroit's conversation forward, give you coverage that gives you context and tells you more about the region we live in. We'll be back tomorrow, of course. The editor of Eater Detroit, Brenna Hauk, is stopping by. Plus, later in the week, I'll be sharing the real story behind the Joe's Fist statue in the middle of downtown Detroit. It's an interesting one, and I think it might challenge some of the things and preconceptions that you might have about what's happening around here. I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and let's build a better Detroit together.